All right, it's 2:03 on this 19th day of August, 2022, and this is time for the fiscal year 23 budget hearing. I am Commissioner Smith, also present as Commissioner Van Beek, Commissioner White, Monica Reeves, our deputy clerk, and we have Controller Wagner joining us as well. And want to welcome you all again and thank you for coming again. This is important to all of us as employees and as taxpayers. So just want to first start with, we received, we had our first public hearing on August 17th in which we received public input. There was no motion by the board that night to close public testimony. And specifically, I stated on the record that I wanted to continue the hearing so I could evaluate the testimony that we received. So I did evaluate that, and I did have an opportunity to even review the emails that have come in since then, but there isn't any additional testimony. I think that I need to make a decision, so I would entertain a motion to close public testimony.
So moved.
I'll second that motion. So there's a motion by Commissioner White and a second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Madam Chair, I didn't know if there were other people that did not attend that wanted to, so I guess I will have a turn on not closing it.
All right, so there is, that motion passes with 2 in favor and 1 opposed. There is construction outside, and if your heart racing fast, it should be now. All right, at this time, are there a decision or any changes that you would like to make to the budget that was presented?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Van Beek?
Board did receive some information this morning from the clerk and the auditor regarding the proposed salary increases. I did have the opportunity to go through, as you have done, and look at the information that we were given to approve at 8.9 budget.
Speak up and into the.
I do have some information for you and for the auditor. And this information would be for the board's consideration that takes and looks at the proposed increases. It uses the clerk's $3,000 set amount and then a $2,000 additional amount that's prorated out, giving the highest consideration for those that are making the lowest amount in the county. I looked at, in particular, the sheriff's office and the starting wage that they've requested for new incoming officers, and I saw that group the other day. There was 3 of them. They're beautiful people that want to develop their careers in law enforcement, and so I think that this is commensurate with what Barb has done. This also allows our wage and compensation analyst to have some latitude in making adjustments for those salaries. It cuts the amount of the proposed increase in half. And again, I don't know if we have the individual here that was talking about, but that we did hear in response to higher salaries can absorb more of the cost of living than those that are trying to do that on $14.83. It's $14.57 is what I have here on the proposal, but this is a consideration that we could use that would give every employee something. It would allow us going forward to evaluate the other factors that are critical in retention and wage increases.
What are your strikes that you've struck?
Those positions were included in the information presented by Director Rast. They are not here any longer. So you'll notice, for instance, on the first page, the PCN 812 for indigent, that's no longer, I don't think is no longer here. And so that's what those represent.
What is your first column?
The first column is a distribution of $2,000 in addition to a $3,000 cost of living adjustment. So the proposed initial increase presented was $11,190. That was almost a 37% increase at a $1,995, which the email, I can call it up, but the board received, again, information from the clerk that would create some issues potentially. We proposed a $17.50 to an $18 an hour rate. This is close. The revised hourly rate would be at $16.98. It represents an hourly increase of $2.40.
How did you determine how the 2,000 was broken down?
Well, the math rubric on that is actually a function by elected office. So you take the $2,000 standard in there and divide it by percentage-wise the amount of the lowest salary divided by the EO's salary. That's how it's determined.
By the what?
The elected official salary for that office.
Say it again.
You would take the $2,000 for the lowest salary position of $30,310. So those positions would get the full 2,000, and then as the amount increases and you get closer to that, it just represents a percentage of that. If we look at the use of the original proposal for 8.9 million, we were talking about compression the other day, or at the last budget hearing, and comparatively speaking, the number that we used was the lowest at 30,000 and the highest at 149, that's 119,000. If you use that model, it increases that wage difference to 130,000. You would go from 41,000 to 171,000. So it increases that gap between the people that are boots on the ground doing the job. So this scales that back.
That's one proposal. Is there a different proposal?
Madam Chair,
Controller Wagner.
I'd like to offer a point of clarification. The clerk's suggested budget was not a fixed, flat $3,000 per employee. The clerk's suggestion was a $3,000 slide in the pay ranges, the position pay ranges, plus the step increase. It was not a fixed $3,000 per employee. It was a $3,000 slide to the range plus a step increase.
Thank you for that clarification. So you're correct. There is a difference in what the clerk proposed in this proposal, because 3,000 is given, assuming that groceries, gas, all of that costs the same, and then the variable is what people choose to do with their discretionary income on that. But the people with the lowest pay ranges, they are the ones that are struggling to meet basic housing and food costs. This also, I tried to contact Assessor Standard today. He did provide information to the board on July 28th, indicating his ranges and proposals contrasted with what was put in for the clerks. Evidently, this is his regularly scheduled day off. I was not able to look at with him. I would like to have done that. It's been busy for both of us, but I think that some of these positions, it falls closely with that. I'm not sure, John. I can give you a copy of this if you'd like it for review.
One thing I want to clarify is the controller. One thing I'm going to like some clarification on, Zach. So the proposal of 3,000 was not per person, but per position. That's
Correct,
kind
yes,
of
it's focused more on the position ranges, raising the position ranges.
okay, so regardless of who feet are on the ground, it's the position and not the, does that make sense?
That makes sense, and the 3,000 was designed to provide greater benefit to the customer service positions. customer service positions with a starting salary of 30,000. You raise that 3,000, that's a 10% increase in the starting salary for our customer service positions.
Okay. So. So, Commissioner Van Beek, Madam Chair.
You want to grab that microphone now?
So Commissioner Van Beek, how does yours work? Say that again. Yours is, that it differs, it differs how?
Well, the clerk's proposal, as Zach has indicated, is a sliding range that goes up. This assumes a flat cost of living for every employee. So we're assuming that every employee that goes to the pump is going to pay the same amount for gas. So that would mean the lower your wage, the higher the percent increase. So if you look at what they had on the percent increase for this, it goes up 16.5%. That's the lowest paid amount, as opposed to the 36.92%. And the other thing, Commissioner White, that this does is it gives the incoming wage analyst that will be here shortly the ability to navigate and to look at these proposals. And I would submit too that there were some mid-year raises for the top end. I think those need to be taken into consideration and reevaluated by that person before additional raises are given. Some of those salary increases mid-year put them at a 72% increase if my numbers were correct. That's significant, and it doesn't address the need. So some of the criticism that we've heard is we've had salary increases year after year. The largest part of our discretionary income goes, or that income revenue goes toward addressing that, and yet we still have people at that lower wage. So why is that happening? Because we're not focusing it on the lower wage earners. And so to be able to do that, then we have to start from the bottom and give them the biggest increase. We also have to be able to not dedicate all future funding to simply salary increases, because the expectation of our citizens is that we are going to build a jail, we are going to do other things. We do have capital improvements that need to be made. So to tie up all of that, the other issue with this is that when the urban renewal returns in 2023, it was projected at $2.3 million. With the levy rate dropping in half to 12 mils, this will now reduce the county's ability to capture all of that. It's a 1-year dump of 20 years of increment value that really is cutting off the revenue significantly.
Madam Chair, may I follow up?
Yeah.
Okay. So is what you've presented, you are or are not including the cost of living? There's no COLA?
Commissioner White, if you look on this, the COLA is clearly identified on the top column. The COLA is a flat 3,000 for every employee. It makes
just a $3,000 one time.
correct.
No. Are you asking for a one-time or a $3,000 increase in pay?
It's a
Cost
3,000.
of living adds to the salary. It's not a one-time pay. So are you asking for a one-time pay or in addition to the salary?
I guess what I'm saying is I'm asking for us to look at this cost of living adjustment allocation, and then we will have to look at what the revenues are for next year. This has that other factor built in. So again, you follow the line across, you have the lowest employee gaining the highest percent increase. It's a $5,000 increase for those positions, which market-wide, there was information sent in by one of our constituents, Amy Widener, took that right off the county website. So some of that information, we're right in the ballpark with that.
Any other discussion?
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see, I wrote some stuff out here. If I can
Grab that microphone now.
Okay, if you look right on the top here, you can see that the COLA is 3,000. Okay, right there. I see that, and then there, okay, this is the other. I just got to get this in my mind here for a minute. Madam Chair, oh, that's okay.
I'll just,
Nobody's breathing, so.
I'm just gonna put on the record that, I appreciate Commissioner Van Beek's time on this. However, I have spent a ton of time, on the previous, report that was generated, and I am in support of the changes. I did review the clerk and the controller's, comments, and I would support the board moving forward with the recommendation with the 9% COLA and the maximum or the minimum salary instead of a proposed 20, reducing it to $18 at this time until we can hire a wage and compensation analyst. But I'd like to still leave the A budget as requested so that we have the money to adjust those salaries when the wage and compensation analysts arrive.
I agree with that. I'm sorry. See.
Because all the people online that just are dying to hear what we say.
Okay, let's see. We're not today specifically approving the salary compensation. So, okay, I guess that's one thing I need to understand right now. So, there's still some discussion to be had there and decisions to make. I would like that one thing that I heard over and over and over and over and over was the commissioners we weren't setting a good example, and our salary, why didn't we then just cut ours and that sort of thing? So why don't we? Why don't we reduce our salary? And because if there's a chief operating officer position that is coming online, that individual, the specific in the discussions, I didn't vote for it, but in the discussions, I was assured that this employee is going to pick up a lot of the burden and some of the cumbersome and some of the whatever work. It all sounded like my job as I've had since I've been here, but I understand the situation. We are going to have some unexperienced and that sort of thing. So in that light of thinking about that, it might turn out to be the best thing for. So then, I'm not done yet. So, yeah, I'll get to talk too. I would like to reduce the board's salary from 103 to 90. And because the operating officer and no 9% COLA. With a 9% COLA. With a 9% COLA. Let's discuss that.
Well, to add, you were talking about 90,000 to the.
To lower our salary to 90%.
Oh, and not include the
and not
COLA.
include the 9% COLA.
Okay.
That's what I propose. That is.
I'm supportive of that.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek.
So two things. First, we have outgoing commissioners who have struggled with attendance. I would understand why that would want to be cut. However, I am withdrawing my support for the chief operating officer position. I have incoming commissioners who actually want to do this job. And so I submit that we do not fund the chief operating officer. Commissioner White has never been in support of that. It would swing to a board majority where that would not be funded, and that we leave the elected official salaries. Ada County has a citizens group, which I think is an excellent idea to help evaluate elected officials' salaries. We would need to put some rubric in place. It shouldn't have to be mandated, but we shouldn't have to tell people to come to work either. So
The wage and compensation analyst look at the commissioners' wages and determine if they're fair. That's what you're asking for everyone else. And so,
And I'm okay with that, but I am no longer in support of the wage of the
that's fine.
chief operating officer. So I think that those wages should be frozen. There could be adjustments. If we adjust down, then we would need to adjust the same percentage down for all elected offices in the county. That would be a proposal, and that will be information that we can have board discussion on when they are seated. So now there's a choice.
I think what she just said is she wants that raise.
That's not what I said at all.
So do you. I agree.
Those comments yesterday, there was email traffic after this budget hearing, and it is a difficult political climate. It is unfortunate. There is more focus on the nasty politics than there is on accomplishing something in this county for our employees and our citizens. And so I am in favor of evaluating all that. I am very happy with this process. This is the 4th budget season I've sat through, and this is the first time that commissioners have had some say-so in what this looks like. I'm happy about that. We have employees. I am for employees. I am for citizens. We cross over into being both. We have to be able to fund and appreciate good salaries. We have to be able to have our citizens be able to afford that. This new proposal does require, again, I said it at the last meeting, Commissioner should have been in the weeds on this months before this process. It's a lot of information to digest. I appreciate each and every employee at Canyon County. You do a fabulous job. We have to be able to stay solvent and meet the needs of both sides.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to approve the budget as presented with the following changes. 1, salaries are not specifically approved for this budget and need to be modified with a starting salary for entry-level positions of $18 for full-time employees and passed by resolution by the board at a future date to resolve any compression issues found within the ranges and positions. This includes a 9% COLA for all employees and elected officials except the Board of County Commissioners, which I propose to reduce the salary to $90,000 because of the addition of the chief operating officer position that will help streamline the management of the board's departments and is included in the budget. Include the position for the emergency management position under 413080 as was found in the clerk's suggested budget and requested by the sheriff, to remove the expense of $175,000 from 682220 for office buildings to be considered by the board at a future date when a building or site becomes available.
Madam Chair.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Yes, I will second that, but I want some discussion too.
There is a motion by Commissioner Smith and a second by Commissioner White. Discussion
Madam
on the
Chair.
motion.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek.
Commissioner White, can you clarify your position, because you have been opposed to a chief operating officer since the idea was presented? Are you now changing your position knowing that you will not be a city commissioner? That is a decision that a new board should make, and I am withdrawing my support for that position.
Madam Chair, so you're the one that's changing your mind, not me. Okay, I just changed the way that I'm going to approach the budget because I think I heard last night or Wednesday night in public hearing. I think I heard, and you can tell me if I'm wrong again, okay? I think I heard somebody say, we're putting together another budget and we're going to bring it before the new board in January. Did I hear that correct? Okay, yeah, okay. So I'm just changing my approach because you're sitting there for how many months now? We had a nice exchange on why I wanted it and why you guys did, why I didn't, all that sort of thing. I was very satisfied with it. I mean, there was a majority. And when there's a majority, okay.
But so I'm just looking at this differently, and the message I received on Wednesday night
was in January, we're going to rip it in half.
we're going to do Nancy Pelosi with this, and we're going to have another one presented for discussion. So I'm good with what was presented to us, and what we read on there and everything else.
All right, there is a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes with 2 in favor and 1 opposed. I do need a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 23 expenditure budget for the King County Pest Control District in the amount of $325,199, and the fiscal year 23 expenditure budget for the Melville Gopher District in the amount of $12,000.
So moved.
And I'll second that motion. So a motion by Commissioner White, a second by Commissioner Smith for approval of those budgets. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes with 2 in favor and 1 opposed. And the information that's in front of us will need adjusted for the final signature of the board for the amounts based on the changes that were read into the record. Want to do that before we leave for the day, and we can just administratively sign those? Or do you want us to go back on the record with the number?
I prefer to go back on the record with a number.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I'm not clear on salaries for the other elected officials
that would,
outside of the board.
that would include what was, it would be a 9% COLA, plus the $1,000 years in position that was applied.
Okay.
So what it did is remove the $8,000 that was presented by our HR director and Director Rast. They had included an $8,000 increase for each elected official, so it removes that $8,000.
May I share with you what I've written down here? So we're on the same page. Remove $175,000 from the clerk's elections budget for a possible polling location site.
And we do want that, just so you know. Just don't think it needs to be included in the budget. We can use fund balance.
And the administrative assistant in the emergency management function.
Correct.
Commissioners' salaries effective October 1 will be $90,000.
Yes.
And then we will work towards an $18 an hour minimum pay. Otherwise, we're going to adopt the pay budget as is. At a later date,
Adjust that.
individual salaries will be fixed.
Yes. And then just very clearly for everyone that's here, it'll be a minimum of 9% cost of living, plus those increases that will come across the board so that it increases everybody's wage up. Because my goal, I not only want to retain you, I also want to recruit good friends that you have. We want, and anyone that's upset about the wages, you're welcome to apply for a job. We do have great wages, and we have great benefits, and we have great employees that you would love working for. And so I would encourage you to do that if you're upset and see if you qualify. So with that, let's take a break. Let Zach have some time to fix those numbers, and then administratively we'll come back on, read those numbers, and get it signed with L2. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.